Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the Behind Company Lines podcast. Today we have Tushar Makhija, founder of TeamOhana. TeamOhana empowers fast-changing businesses to execute their strategic hiring plans on time and within budget by unifying data, people, and processes in a collaborative platform so they can achieve their business goals faster. Tushar, it's so exciting to have you on the podcast, not only because of your wealth of experience as an entrepreneur, but really this exciting time about kind of this people management and kind of team management. It's not really talked about a lot, but I feel like we've seen the pains of scaling go the wrong way. And a lot of that is just disorganization or not knowing where the resources are flowing or over hiring in certain directions. So it's exciting to see how companies are doing so with more intent behind their hiring or scaling their businesses or resources. So I'm excited to dive into that. But before we get into that, what were you doing before Team Ahana
Well,
professionally?
uh, yeah, I was doing a lot of things. But first, thank you for having me on your podcast. It's great to be here and come and share what we're building, a little bit about my background, and answer any of the interesting questions that you're going to pose at me in the next 45 minutes. But yeah, so I am, as I like to say, I am an engineer by training. I started my career at VMware. I was an early engineer there. I joined there pre-IPO. I think that's the bedrock of everything I learned about technology and caught on the early bug to do something of my own. And so the story is that I recruited two of my best friends who we
Mhm.
went to school together into VMware so that we could all live together as housemates and then come up with an idea. And they didn't even know about this till they joined VMware and said, why did you bring us here? I'm like, oh, well, we should do a startup. So this was 2008. And we were all immigrants, so we didn't really have a we were on a work visa, so we used to moonlight and started building a product. The first company didn't do as well, but there were tremendous learnings, and I think the one co-founder went to join Nest, then that went
Yeah.
on to be joined by Google, so he's doing really well. The other founder moved back to India, and he's very high up there at Flipkart. And then I decided to continue on my path of startups. And yeah, that's how I came up with my first non-engineering role. It was at a
Mhm.
company called Helpshift back in 2012. So the
Yeah.
founders of Helpshift, I got to meet them when I was doing my own startup, and they told me, "Hey, you're a smart guy. This is not a great idea that you're working on. Why don't you come join our idea?" In hindsight, it made sense. So I was there
Yeah.
for 5 years. I was their first business hire, took the company to 20 million ARR. This was my first real SaaS
Yeah.
sales role as well. Very exciting time, just learning. This is like, I think if you go back 2010, 2012, people started talking about, like, I remember going to a SaaSter event with Jason Lemkin where there were
Yeah.
only 50 people in the room. That's how those were old, exciting times. So learn through selling, learn through building teams right there. And at one time, I had like 50 people reporting into me across the revenue organization: sales, customer success, customer support, marketing, sales development, and all the good things. From there, I went to a company called Airbase, which is also a very exciting story. When I left Helpshift, I recorded a video on LinkedIn where I talked for 15 minutes about all the things that I've learned and all the things that I'm excited about. And I said, I'm taking some time off. A CEO of Airbase. Airbase is a spend management system.
Yeah.
And he was starting up, and he had just closed or was about to close his first round of funding. And he said, Tushar, I've heard about what you've done at Helpshift. Are you crazy enough to do it again? And I'm like, sure thing, let's go. So that was a much faster pace of operation. 2 years from seed to Series B, and
Yeah.
selling a newer category to finance and HR, who were focused on managing the company's expenses. And fast forward to 2022, where I came up with the idea of TeamOhana, where we said, as I was talking to leaders at selling Airbase, they told me that, hey, Airbase is managing all our expenses, which is, or
Yeah.
non-payroll spend is a technical word that CFOs use. And they said, Tushar, non-payroll spend is less than 10% of our operating expense. I'm like, okay, what is 90%? It's like, okay, then there's cloud cost, but then there is people expenses. And I'm like, okay, you've got Workday, you've got all these HR
Yeah.
systems, and you've got these payroll systems. Why don't they help you there? And that was the genesis of the idea that people touches across systems and across groups of people and
Yeah.
different teams, and every team is working in their own silo. Finance is budgeting in one system, they call it the FP&A software. HR is
Yeah.
managing employees in the HRIS. The talent team is hiring new people in an ATS. So if you have to ask this question, like, okay, what is my current headcount? What is my future headcount? Where am I today? Where am I going? We like to brand it as what is your company's effective headcount right now, and what is your effective headcount forecast in the future? To answer this fundamental question, you have to go data wrangle across three different systems. So that was
Yeah.
the light bulb moment. We founded the company, and now we are 22 people around the world, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I've.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. And thank you so much for walking through experience. It's so exciting to hear. Obviously, I want to get into TeamOhana because there's some such interesting, I think, about the technology and how it maybe integrates with others as well. Obviously, I want to dive into that. But thinking about the phases of growth at the previous companies, thinking about Airbase,
Yeah.
Helpshift, how when you're creating a kind of a new category within pre-existing ones like Airbase in particular, how do you communicate that? Like value? Are you comparing it to things people know? Are you trying to create a story behind the genesis of new idea? Because it's hard when founders really kind of conceive this idea, see the opportunity, but the communication bit is challenging because you almost want
Yeah.
to really associate it to things people already know. How did you tackle that problem?
I would say that it is a lot of, I think if you go in with this mindset that if you fundamentally believe that you have created a solution that has value and it is rooted in some feedback and some real world
Mhm.
hypotheses coming from real world customers, then I think taking and building on that idea becomes easier, not easy, but easier.
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
I've been, uh, I would say, lucky that both the companies, Helpshift, our pitch, I still remember very clearly when I went to a first meetup and people say, so what is Helpshift? And I said, hey, do you know what Zendesk does? And people say, yeah, it's customer service software. I'm like, great. We are Zendesk for mobile. And then everybody was like, what do you mean by that? It's tell me more,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So
yeah, yeah,
it was enough association to tell the brain that what we are customer support software, but we are optimized for mobile. We are mobile first. So clearly people were like, oh, what do you do? How do you do it? Why is it different? And that channels into this early market and early adopters, which are all the top mobile apps in the world within the first
yeah,
2 years of, of Helpshift were on using the Helpshift SDK. Flipboard,
yeah,
and then Supercell Games, Glue Games, those were the mobile app companies, right? They had the
yeah.
mobile users. So before I
It,
left Helpshift, my final deal was with the Epic Games,
yeah.
the makers of what is that game called?
Fortnite.
Fortnite, Fortnite,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it was like if you were the number one mobile operator or a mobile games developer, you were using Helpshift, and it all started from that
Wow.
one thing. Coming also to Airbase, the idea was, hey, it was all about corporate card spend. That was the very
Yeah.
early part of this. Like, hey, what is your corporate card provider today? And mostly it's Amex, and then it is Chase, Bank of America. And I'm like, okay, you've got all of these transactions. As a finance leader, do you know who is spending your money? Do you have real time insight?
Mm,
So they're
yeah.
like, no. We're saying, so we just said, if two things, imagine that before anybody has to swipe, they have to take a pre approval from you. Finance team is like, great. Of course, nobody should spend
Yeah.
money before they tell us, right? So we gave them that power and that control. And the second thing we said, as soon as someone has spent the money, you will have the receipt and the transaction in your dashboard. And you can click a button and send it to your
Mhm.
QuickBooks or NetSuite, which is your company's
Yeah.
general ledger. And that was the whole thing. It's like we were talking about corporate cards, but we were showing them just as a whole new world of what
Yeah.
corporate cards can be. And it was about real time visibility, real time control. It was about pre approvals. So
Yeah.
you have to find this small box. And I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
It
And
is,
just
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, it's so fascinating. Not only when you find that box, how do you communicate, but also thinking about defining your customer, because I think we have a pre-existing notion. Maybe we do a bunch of customer interviews before. I'm doing some right now for a new product I'm launching, and so we get more of a degree of focus through those conversations. But my gut feeling is that there's going to be someone out there that I don't know we can serve before I even know it. And how do you kind of go about targeting who you think could take the most value out of your product, and also be open to other opportunities without spreading yourself too thin?
Yeah, I think so. It starts with some frameworks that have helped me in the past. So, no large organization or is going to buy your software till they see real examples of real companies. They may be like half the size of the bigger, larger organization or one fourth the size, but you are out there in the market. So I think the first framework to think about is that solve a small enough problem, but solve it so well, and then take it out to as many people who you can bring as early adopters, right?
Yeah.
And then keeping the next logical step is you will never you cannot change multi dimensions. So the dimensions are the type of person in a, like, you choose a department, then the dimension is that, okay, in that department, who is the right person to talk to? Is this for
Yeah.
the accounting person? Is this for the FP&A person? Is this directly to the CFO? Who will see the maximum value for what problem you have solved? And then the third dimension is the size of company.
Yeah.
And I think startups start by selling to startups, and then you keep building on top of that. So we, taking an example out of TeamOhana, our first customer was 100 employees, second customer was 300 employees,
Yeah.
fourth customer was 500 employees, and now we are selling to a 3,000 person company, right?
Yeah.
It's the same product. It's just we can show value, we can show real insights, we can have real customer quotes. It just
Yeah.
makes us more informed. So I think you don't build software. If a large company comes and tells you that, hey, if you build this software we will buy, that is not a good customer.
Yeah.
If they are so convinced, they would buy and say, let's build this together. That's the customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that is one scar tissue that I learned, and we follow this very diligently.
Yeah.
We won't build a new feature till at least 5 customers have asked for it. And then we
Yeah.
also say, okay, what can you do today in the platform so that you can go and see the value downstream when we go and ship that. And you have to be
Yeah.
true. And if you commit something, you go and build it. But don't start by building a feature hoping someone is going to use it in the future. That never
Yeah.
happens. Never
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, you echo a lot of practices that so many founders will learn along the way, but those who do kind of learn that lesson really kind of create products that are really they're lean, they're agile, and they're very impressive, super sophisticated, but very simple. And I think that is a mark of a really mature product, which is amazing to see. And shifting towards Team Ohana, and I would love for you to give the audience a little bit of context on what exactly the problem you're solving, and what in particular wasn't being solved by the other incumbents prior to Team Ohana?
Yeah. So I think tradition. So if I we are in this category of workforce management, which has two clear components. You're analyzing your workforce, and then you are planning to either expand your workflows or shrink your workforce. So there is analysis, and then there is planning, and the third part is execution. Traditional FP&A softwares have workforce planning as a module, but I think
Mm,
it what we were hearing from companies is that it puts you in a very rigid box. So I think it is built
mm,
from the manufacturing era. If you look at, there are certain FP&A software that were built for manufacturing companies that have to do supply, demand, throughput, output, which is great if you have to track machines. And
mm,
then you have to take that machine output and split it into shifts and then decide, okay, in a shift, how many people can we have, right? Uh,
right.
and if you look at supply chains, like if you get a big order, you want to make sure that you're going to hit the order, you're going to fund and staff the entire organization based on that. Modern startups don't, or modern companies themselves actually have very different problems. They have to be very agile to understand, hey, how are we growing fast enough? Where should we grow? what type of people we want to bring in, where are we missing in skill set, which teams, if we hire these people, which teams would we put them in. So there is what who is the right manager. For example, if tomorrow I want to build an AI feature, I'm not going to go find engineers in South America. If I want to go and build a Ruby on Rails app or a Python app, I can go and find engineers outside of the US. But right now, the epicenter of AI development is happening right here in San Francisco, right? Maybe you're in New York, so I won't piss you off. So maybe sometimes a little bit in New York too, right?
we'll take crypto.
So see, if I have to build a crypto feature, I'm going and finding people in New York, right? So these are the decisions that are agile decisions, and today's systems don't allow you to make those decisions because they don't have access to real-time data. So I think before we started this company, we first realized is that what are we really building is an employee data platform. What is an employee data platform? That is sucking in employee data from a financial system, which is what is my employee budget. Then an HR system has what are my employee attributes: male, female, age, education, qualification, location, salary, right? So, or maybe you have a compensation as a third pillar of sucking in compensation data. Then you have information about your applicant tracking system, like how quickly do you hire people? How long does it take to hire people? How many recruiters do you need? You also have to analyze attrition. What type of people leave the company? When they leave, how long does it take you to backfill those people? Do you backfill them at the same price or you have to pay 20% more? If you go back 10 years, we didn't have that price gyration as much on here. Salaries are changing every 6 months now. How do you plan the future of your organization, and how do you manage people spend, which is 80% of your company's spend, if you don't have real-time information? So after we built this EDP, which is the employee data platform, and now we have this unified employee object. On top of that, then we built an analytics engine to tell our customers, hey, this is your current workforce, this is the workforce throughput, this is the cost of the workforce. And all companies are very good at planning their future in the sense that they know how much revenue they want to generate, how many features they need to build. That problem is solved. If you have a good VP of engineering, a good VP of finance, they'll tell you all this information. A good VP of sales will tell you how many salespeople you would need. But bringing it all together in one collaborative platform and then allowing you to make changes to the plan as you go about executing. And I think that is the most appealing part. That instead of thinking about financial planning and analysis, we have to now think about people planning and analysis. We have to do it in real time, and it has to be collaborative. You cannot live in a siloed system. So we are not replacing an ATS, we are not replacing an HRIS, we are not replacing your budgeting tool. We are just sucking all of that data and creating this single source of truth and this unified platform where you first analyze data, make inferences, then make decisions, and then finally execute on those decisions. And what is that last mile of execution is that how many people would you need to hire? So you can basically model and create your company's headcount plan in our system.
It's so fascinating thinking about the different variables that incorporate in the expense of human capital. And I think we can think about some things like salary and benefits, but things get a little muddy because there's not maybe everybody has a different healthcare plan. People have different, say, stock options within the company. How are you able to aggregate all that data? What was like the first build? Was it building an API that just scraped all the information? Like, how did you start building the data and really getting and categorizing those things that are actually important to companies? Because I feel like that's the huge, you probably live and die on how well that gets categorized and how good that data is.
You are spot on in that observation. One of the reasons, and I had this in my pitch deck when we were raising our seed round back in October, was that I said, the reason I'm building this company now is because there are companies out there that are giving us a unified API connection into all of these other systems. So like the iPhone came about, and that's why you have Uber and DoorDash, right? For example. But because of this unified API companies being available, we now focus on how do we normalize that data and create a data platform rather than building these pipes of pulling
Yeah.
data reliably. So, and especially now when security and privacy is so important. If I'm my partner, it's a SaaS provider, and their sole job is to build, manage, maintain unified public APIs for integration, right? And
Yeah.
I got introduced to that company. They're called merge.dev. They're based in New York, amazing founders. And I was really impressed. And I shared my vision with their CTO, and that CTO was like, "This
Yeah.
is exactly what we are building." And I said, "Okay." So I actually signed a contract with them. They were kind enough to give me deferred payment terms even before I raised a round of funding. And I said,
Yeah.
"We're going to build on top of you from the very beginning." And I walk into every meeting today, and even I tell all the VCs
Yeah.
that the reason I built this company is because I don't want to spend time building pipelines of data. I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
analyze that data. I want to run operations on that data. I want to draw inferences out of that data. I want to make that data actionable and operatable rather than just building
Well,
connection pipes, right?
how often
So
does that happen with it's not happening in my company, but how often does it happen where you partner with, say, the service company? I forgot what their name was, but
merge.
Merge. Thank you. Where you partner with them, and not necessarily you're building pipeline, but you're relying on their ability, but also extracting knowledge off of what they're doing. How sensitive or sophisticated is that relationship? Being that I guess as you both grow, both benefit, right? But yeah, just I've never heard of that type of relationship before.
So I think so. This is not an equity partnership or something. Their whole
Sure, sure,
business,
sure.
I'm buying a SaaS subscription. So they are a
Yeah,
SaaS
yeah,
provider of API connectors in a way, right? And they
yeah,
have done a great job in. I don't have to go in and do a separate integrating with provider one and a separate integration with provider two. They have integrated with all of them and created a unified data model that I can access. And if I need
yeah,
to do any additional data, I can write wrappers on top of their data to go and connect and get new data that they are probably not storing in the unified model. But I think this is what the future is going to like. With We now live in this API first world, right?
yeah,
So we have to think about what is the value that TeamOhana brings to the customer, and what are we charging for? Are we charging for data integration? No, we are charging for data analysis and data workflows.
right.
So that is how I say, where should all the engineers be working on data analysis, data workflows? And
Yeah,
we have only one integration engineer that manages all our integrations because
yeah,
Merge does such a great job in building out all of these different connectors, right? And
yeah,
maintaining them. If the API changes at the source, I don't have to worry about it. They will change
yeah,
it because they know that their whole business relies on it, right?
yeah. How
So
much, if you were to reflect, how much faster do you think, based on the advancements of technology and other companies coming about like Merge, how much faster are you able to kind of go to market with your product nowadays as a founder in general? From
okay,
when you first started out, or
yeah,
even along the way? Yeah.
so we raised a round of funding in October, and it was just the two founders, right? October
Mhm,
2021, right?
mhm, mhm.
It was just the two founders, and we raised on a deck on an idea. We had no engineers, we had no prototype, we had done nothing. We had just tested out Merge, like, hey, this works, right?
Yeah,
From that time to building a team and hiring 5 engineers to launching our product, our first iteration alpha product was live February of 2022. By July of 2022, we had 10 customers. So that is the
wow.
speed of execution, right? And I would not say it's, I think
Wait, is
having
that 2022 or
last one,
2023?
2022,
Got it, yeah, yeah.
2022.
You raised in
So
October.
October of 2021,
Got it, okay, okay.
I raised,
I think
right?
it's
So I
yeah,
raised in October 2021.
yeah,
February of 2022, I was talking to one of our seed investors, and he said, "So how's it going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we've hired this team. We have already shipped version 1 of the product, and we are onboarding our first customer in February 2022. And they were like, okay,
Blown away.
either you're massively bullshitting me, or this is insanely good. So I was like, let's go with the decently good. But again, as I said at the very beginning of our conversation, right? You solve a small enough problem, you solve it well, and you go to market fast. So between February of 2022 and October of 2022, when we officially launched the product, our website, we did a press announcement, and we came out of stealth. We already had real customers, real ARR, real feedback, real quotes. We had quantified the value. So then now we were ready to say, okay, now I'm ready to hire a marketing person. And I also, how I think about go to market operation, and I know you have more questions on that, but I'll just prelude this, is that I think you should always start by thinking about distribution before you think about anything else. That's why we hired a marketing person before we hired anybody in sales, because what we needed to do was come up with new pages in the website, landing pages, go figure out if you can find a customer, what is the first thing they're going to do? They're going to search your damn name on Google, right? And if garbage shows up, that's it. You've lost the brand value just falls. So we spent the first 3 months, and then we hired our first salesperson in February. We hired our second person in March, and now we know that we have enough 5-6 months of marketing work that has been done, pre-work that has been done to help the sales team to execute, because sales should not be sitting there twiddling their thumbs, right? So distribution before hiring for salespeople.
I mean, I think a lot of founders learn that later on, but it's really the assets. The people talk about SEO, and sometimes it's popularized, sometimes it's not. But that's so important. Even as a founder, you don't have to have an expert in it, but just structuring your company the right way on your website, the content that you're distributing, having things regularly consistent, it's so important. It's all the stuff that's challenging to do in the beginning. It takes a little bit more manual work, but once you build enough or a repository, it's substantial, right? And then you're a little bit better associated with your product.
Yeah. I was also talking to another founder, who said, Tushar, should I hire 2 salespeople? What should I do? And they are just Series A, almost Series A now. So I was like, I would hire a leader first. Because and they're like, oh, that's counterintuitive. Everybody says hire AEs first. I'm like, who's going to tell the AE what to do? Who's going to come up with a strategy? You can barely make time for products or marketing or engineering. You're the CEO. So if you can find, that's what Airbase CEO did really well, right? If he found me, he was very clear that Tushar, first 3-4 months, you're the only one selling. I need you to learn the demo. I need you to write the pitch. I need you to write the cold call script. I need you to write the cold emails, everything you do. And I did it. Once you do that, I have built enough product knowledge and muscle to go and hire the next person and tell them, look, I am the guy. This is not founder selling. I sold these deals. And if I can sell it, I can teach you how to sell it. And probably you'll do it better because I'm the sales manager or the VP of sales. I'm still sitting in many useless meetings, but you are only focused on selling, right? And I can help you get on a call. I can answer questions. That builds confidence in your future sales hires as well. Is that, my VP can sell. They are not just spreadsheet people, right? So I think that is another insight.
One thing I take away from that story in particular is how important the expectation is during the onboarding process of what you should be doing, what you should be accomplishing, and what you should be, what you should have at the end of this time period to be able to go into the next phase. How often do you think companies don't set that up, or leaders aren't maybe mature enough in their career to set that up? What in particular? Because I see this a lot where they hire a rock star or an individual that they think is going to be a strong fit, but there's a disconnect in the onboarding process or expectations or something very small. It's not the ability. It's typically something a little bit more in the weeds. Why do you think that happens?
I think there are like different ways to think about why it happens, right? I think it happens primarily because inexperience, right? You don't know what you haven't lived. And you are so focused on your mission
Yeah.
that you forget that not everyone has that. They may have founder mindset, but they are not founders. They don't own as
Yeah.
much equity. They're not invested. It's not the only thing in their life. So you cannot expect that the people that you bring in, you have to bring them for
Yeah.
specialized functions, and you got to give them specialized goals to go hit. You cannot think about just hiring too many generalists. You're a generalist, right? You can
Yeah.
also sell,
Yeah.
you can write code, right? You can be a CSM, you can be a customer support rep, you can do all because you're the founder, you're the founding team.
Yeah.
So I think that that is one. It's just inexperience, and there's no real playbook out there that is tell you do's and don'ts. I can't Google and say do's and don'ts of
Sure.
starting a company and doing that, right? I mean, there is so much material that we talk about engineering architecture and product principles and frameworks, but nobody talks about go to market as much,
Yeah.
right? What do we
Yeah.
hear about go to market is all tactics. How do you write an email? What sales methodology you have to do? But what is the first founder sales to first few AE story? And so it's
Yeah.
good that if you bring in someone that you can trust, that is true. I think also some parts, some VCs are to blame. If you cut a check and you call the next morning and say, have you scaled already? What is the founder going to do? You're going to do helter skelter, right? So
Yeah.
I tell people that don't raise a round of funding to go figure out what you're going to do next. It can take you, if it takes you longer to go figure out what you need to do, that's fine. But go to the VC and say, when I raise a round of funding, these are the things I'm going to do. These are the
Yeah.
things I think I need help with. These are the things where this is how much money it would cost me. If you do this groundwork first, especially seed stage companies trying to raise a Series A, you
Yeah.
can't, in this environment, you should not be talking about, okay, I'll go figure it out once I raise a round of funding. You have to say, no,
Yeah.
I have figured this out. And if you give me the funding, I scale faster. That's
Right.
why I need it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's exciting. It's really exciting to see the maturity. Obviously, it's tough times. We don't like to see companies who go down, but it really is exciting for the those founders who are finding not only a way to run their companies more efficiently and effectively and operate at a higher clip with less resources, but also how better their products are and how much more value they add because they live and die by it. And so you're seeing better business models, you're seeing better pricing models, more creativity and marketing campaigns. You really see a lot of boom in that sense for those who are clawing to obviously stay above water, but also to accelerate their growth and find a way forward. And thinking about Team Ohana, tell us about what's been exciting about the growth up to this point and what's on the next horizon. What's the next milestone for the company?
yeah, I think it's really been fun bringing together the right group of equally passionate, motivated people who have this desire to build a company, right? I think the initial phase is all about team building. If
Yeah.
again, counterintuitive, right? We are not thinking features, we are not thinking products, we are only thinking about two people. One is what is the team that we need so that we can best serve these type of
Yeah.
customers, right? I think that has been the our happy journey so far. And I think organically, we didn't, even in October 2022, I think we got in before the negative sentiment crept into the world of the VC world. But
Mhm.
we were reasonable in the valuation that we were seeking. That
Mhm.
allows you to set the tone with the VC that I'm going to set reasonable, achievable targets. There is no magic wand. It always takes longer than you think it would take.
Yeah.
So just prepare for it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that has been the fun part of one of the things I wanted to do this company was I had ideas, I had things, and but not all my ideas and my processes were implemented because I was not the CEO in the last three companies that I was with. I was early hires, I was respected, but I was not the CEO. So I think I wanted to see if my frameworks and my ideas work and can I actually stand true to them
Yeah.
when I'm actually in the hot seat myself. So it's I would not say that I'm 100% following, but I'm doing fairly okay, 70, 75%, and I'm happy with that, right? So
Good. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love the self reflection, and it's always nice to kind of measure where you are and always kind of look forward to the progress ahead. And but thinking in terms of the company, whether it's external or internal, what are some of the biggest risks that you think the company faces today?
I think what has happened in the last, so this is, I tell this, that organizational growth has to come before revenue growth. If you're any
Yeah.
company that has a plan for next year to grow, you have to hire, right? You have to grow your team. You'll have to augment your current resources and workforce. Even though this is very practical, I think a lot of business, like the companies that we want to sell to, are in a wait and see kind of mode.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think the biggest challenge is that when will we snap out of this? I don't like, we keep talking about a recession, but it's hard to find one.
Yeah.
Things are lurking. So everybody is like, is it going to happen tomorrow? What is the next shoe to drop? So I would say the next 6 months are really crucial. If we can snap out, then good companies, good products, you need
Yeah.
that luck as well. You can have the best product, but in the shittiest market, you will shut down, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're burning capital every day. And if you're not
Yeah.
growing as
Yeah.
fast as you're burning, so you can, but you can't also not burn in this early stage, right? I mean, it's, we have 20 people in the company, but we need those 20 people. They're all doing two people's
Yeah.
job, right? So I think that's the risk. Can we snap out
Yeah.
of this environment, and can we do it? How soon can we do it, right?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah. Yeah.
if, depending if Q3 Q4 of this year is going to really tell us what the world is going to look like. So
Yeah.
I think we feel that is one thing, and then all the other things that we spoke about, right? Don't build features till customers already want to buy it. Focus, do less in this environment. Do less, do it better. Go deep rather than going too broad, right?
Mhm.
Rippling can do HR, IT, and all of these things in one platform because they've earned the right as Rippling. You should
Yeah.
not be trying to become a platform. You have to be good at one or two things first before
Yeah.
you earn the
Yeah.
right to be a platform, right? So I think that's where you focus, do less, hyper prioritize, say no, and then
Yeah.
let luck play its part. That 6 months down the line, we snap out of this wait and watch and start focusing on building each of our businesses. As people start
Yeah.
spending money on building their businesses, all the other businesses thrive.
Yeah.
Very natural
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I like the next section. I'm going to hit you with a few founder FAQs that I like to call, and we'll see. We'll see where we get. So first question I always like to open up is what's particularly hard about your job day to day?
Because you are, the buck stops with you. So the hardest part
Mhm.
is constantly evaluating your decision making processes and frameworks so that you make good decisions.
Yeah.
Because if you have good people, they will run with your decisions, right? They'll be breaking down walls. You just want to make sure you point them in towards the right wall, right? That's the
Yeah.
hardest part.
Yeah. Thinking about when you want to grow headcount and figuring out the ways to do so, if you do have a platform like TeamOhana, what would you advise founders on? Obviously, you talked about distribution being one kind of priority when you're thinking about your company in particular. But when I'm starting to scale, I've got product market fit, maybe my MVP launch, I'm working on my version one. Where do I really kind of invest my next set of resources? Obviously, it depends on my technology, but where do most founders, I'd say, kind of fall under the pitfalls of bad decisions or a bad headcount? But where do you focus on growing your team?
If you're in a SaaS business and you believe you have early for semblance of product market fit, then you have to think about distribution.
Yeah, yeah,
That is the final frontier. And I think that's where most companies underinvest. You cannot find one person who is good at demand gen and brand and content. It just doesn't work.
it, yeah,
Go, it's okay. Then I'm actually promoting hire three people.
yeah,
But if, and then sequence them. Do you need the demand gen first? Hire them first. Do you need the content before the demand gen? Hire them first. And then sequence them correctly. And that's where the platform will tell you when you should be hiring people in
yeah.
that role. So, but invest in distribution and don't
Yeah.
hire AEs before you have enough pipeline.
Thinking about companies and as they seek out headcount now, and I'm curious, how much do you think your product will affect how companies will kind of distribute their headcount and the resources, the people that they have on the teams? Not only seeing that they're skilled beyond their job function, but being able to allocate them during times where they need to be more agile. Do you think your platform will have an effect on larger companies being more agile? That's just one thing I was like, it'd be such a positive way to impact a larger organization, be able to shift resources around more quickly than previously. That's something you think about?
I do, and there is a specialty feature in the product that we call the dynamic org chart that
Mm,
allows most companies look at their teams in an Excel sheet, in a data sheet view, which is very single dimension, right? But there
yeah,
is multi dimensions. Like, okay, whereas I have this team, where are all of them based? What is their performance rating? When was the
yeah,
last raise they got? Are they overpaid? Are they underpaid? What is their average tenure? What are the levels? Am I concentrated on smaller teams? Am I concentrated on larger teams with all young, like inexperienced people, or do I have only staff engineers? Right? You can't do this in an Excel sheet because it is so single dimension. You can do
yeah,
this in a platform because the platform is designed, number one, to give you a better visualization of this data, and then the platform has the analytics that helps you come to a conclusion faster. And then the
yeah,
third most important thing a software does is that watchdog or an eye that if you're doing something wrong, it can detect that anomaly and point you in the right direction, right? So it's all about proactive decision making, and that's
yeah.
what the platform is going to help you, and that's how you become agile.
Brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant thinking about I just think about taking the lean startup ability and putting it into a larger organization with features like that and how much more they can accelerate into charting new territories or products or features using the resource they have versus seeing what I think we see a lot lately where this big hiring frenzy and then big firing cycle with a lot of the recent events with larger tech companies. But you wonder if there's a better way to redistribute those resources and what that looks like. So exciting that your team is working on something in that arena and tackling that problem. I love this next question. I love how founders extract knowledge out of anything that they ingest, whether it's books or people. What's impacted or influenced you the most, whether it's early in your career or now?
I think my mentors have there is at every junction or like critical moment of my professional life, there has always been someone who has shown incredible belief and confidence in my ability to do something, even when I don't have that ability. And I think those are the people that you should have in your life. And I'm one of the lucky ones that I have a few of those who have helped guide me and helped me at
Yes.
least try hard enough to achieve my full potential.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
attribute a lot to these smart people that
Yeah.
happenstance came into the life,
Yeah.
but I just clung on to them, didn't let them
Yeah.
go.
It's any advice or lesson or philosophy that any of them bestowed on you that you still use today?
So I mean, it's two things, and they're very different, but it makes so treat people the way you want to be treated. Oh, there was this very fine gentleman I used to work for who taught me that. Second is give, give, get. Don't
Mm,
assume that if you have a relationship, you're going to get something out of it. So I think that is some of us are plagued from that transactional side of things.
yeah.
Like one of my best friendship is someone I met the first time I moved to the Bay Area 17 years ago. I
Yeah.
was with him last night, and he's like, everybody asked us, how do you know each other? It's like we were roommates for 3 months when we both graduated college and we came to the Bay Area for jobs, right? And we don't share a lot of. He's not a founder; he's in a different industry, but we have that mutual give, give,
Yeah.
get. And the third thing, which I believe I want everybody to embody, is power is never given, power is taken. So if you want
Mm,
something, go act on it. Nobody's going to
yeah.
hand it to you, no one's coming.
Yeah.
Power is never given, it's always taken.
I love that. I love that. It's empowering and it's really exciting to see who's kind of influenced your career and where you are today. And I know we're coming up to the close of the episode. I've had such a great conversation, but I always like to ask this question to see if you left anything on the table. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have? Anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up? Anything at all that we left on the table today?
I would just, I should say, I've been very privileged to have parents that have enabled me to do better things, have provided. And right now, as a founder, I'm very happy I feel very blessed that my wife is the primary breadwinner of the company, and she's very accommodating of me working 18-hour days so that I can
Yeah.
fulfill first my dream and then our family's dream. But so
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, mom and dad, and thank you, my wife. That's it.
Tushar, that's so beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing not only your journey, but what the company is doing, and really the intelligence that a lot of larger organizations can really start adopting, and with this ability to be agile, and also thinking about how founders could be better intentful about how they hire their headcount, deciding to build smarter organizations, and that you are part of that mission. And thank you so much for being on the show today. Last little bit, where can we find you? Give us your plugs, your LinkedIn's, your Twitters. Where can we be a fan and support what you're doing?
Yeah, you can always reach me at tushar@teamohana.com. I'm at Tushar Makhija on LinkedIn and at T Makhija on Twitter. So yeah, find me, and I'm open to having a lot of good conversation with
Amazing.
other similar-minded people.
Amazing, Tushar. I hope you enjoyed yourself today, and thank you so much for being on Behind
I
Company
did.
Lines.
Thank you so much
Awesome.
for having me. I really appreciate it. All right.